Folks, what's going on? How you doing? Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what's going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. Well, before we get going, as always, let's set a little bit of the music in the background, all right? How about? Yeah, let's go ahead with this. All right, folks. Jazzy Jeff, Moonchild. Fair use, by the way. Feel free. Mine. Classic Jazzy Jeff. Again, fair use. Go ahead and ease back. All right, so it's going to be a full day today for some folks, all right? So I'm not going to hold everybody too long here. So this is going to be a short run. So what I want to get folks listening to and thinking about right now is going to be a subject that keeps popping up, it seems, every 4 or 5 months. We just can't seem to get around this. So today's topic, let's take a minute to readdress submission. How many times can you beat something into the ground, right? We've heard it multiple times, many times, as I said before, at least 3 or 4 times a month. Why is this not getting through? And that's going to come down to people's own intrinsic values. Can we agree on that part, right? So let's think of it from the perspective of an older dude. Now, obviously, at my point in time in life, not a lot of things I say will be considered as useful to certain folks, depending upon what generation you come from. But some things never change. Some things are always going to be solid, but that solid is only going to be of worth if it is valued. Now, what is my common saying, folks? Value has no worth unless it's agreed upon, because we get what we qualify for in the end. So value is going to have to be that aspect that's kept in mind. Now, with that said, submission in and of itself is a necessary concession. Now, think of that from the perspective of a relationship that men will say unconsciously cede to it, whereas women consciously fight against it. Think about this again. Men unconsciously cede to submission, whereas women actively fight against it. Now, where would this imbalance come from? Now, I've always said that comprehension is a good thing. If you understand what it is that you are discussing, you will have a more rational and well-rounded decision before you take action. So rather than anyone take my definition of submission, let's go ahead and just build this foundation from where we are right now. Patty, what's good? Yeah, appreciate you stopping in real fast, man. And again, my bad for the confusion earlier, but since we had that little talk in the background, I think we're good now. So getting to this, folks, submission is something that is going to be a price that everybody pays. Ideally, look at it from the standpoint that when we talk about submission, generally it's asked of the woman. That's where it always seems to start from, or it's asked of the woman because no one thinks of a man's part and how submission plays a part in his role. So think of it from this perspective. Her submission has a price tag on it. Now, I've spoken about this in a previous video. Her submission has a price tag on it. She can charge whatever she wants. However, she needs to make sure that before she charges, that whatever it is that she's looking for has value to others. That value thing is not going to go away. I can't just simply self-assess myself and presume that my value is here just because that's how I feel about it. If you don't have anyone who shares that sense of value with you, then you've got a product that nobody wants. But before we go off the rails too far, let me give you a shout out here, or should I say a shot of submission. And we'll do this from, I'm not playing any music here. So I'm going to dim the beats here for a second in the background. All right, so again, I want everyone to get a good look here of what I'm posing when we're talking about submission. At least let's have some definitions here that people can understand. And just a second, I got the wrong screen. Let's try this again. Screen. Entire. There we go. All right, so the definitions of submission. The action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. Now, this is generally the first signs of discord when submission is mentioned because of the words that are used. Notice I say the words. Well, I don't like the way you said that. I don't like that tone. Doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. However, people will be, and I hate using this word, triggered based off on how they hear something. Now, there's a secondary definition to submission as well. The action of presenting a proposal, application, or other document for consideration or judgment. But now we're talking about submission in a legal sense, not from a perspective of a relationship. So the word that people confuse submission with more or less is subservient. Let's take a look at that. Subservient, prepared to obey others unquestioningly. That is what the majority of women hear if submission is mentioned, which is not the case. That's not what's being aimed for. Now, believe it or not, submission is positive and it's negative. But far too often, it's the negative connotation that people hear because of the first definition. Not saying that the first definition is wrong, but you have to look at the words that are being used. Yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. Now, how do we know that that's going to be an issue? Simply because of the fact you saw the word superior. And people believe that if I'm dealing with someone superior, then that must make me inferior. Not that that's the case, but that is how it's interpreted. Now, I said before, comprehension goes a long way. So if you have someone who does not have a strong background of words or definitions and comprehensions, but they do know key words that we'll say that exacerbate a situation, such as superior, and I'm not the superior person. Bowing down to the will of another person or someone of superior authority or will. That is going to set things off. Believe it or not, there is positive and there is negative connotation when you talk about submission. Positive submission as well as negative submission. Let's keep on moving here before we jump into a few more things. So the question is, what is positive submission? In healthy relationships, positive submission involves supporting and accepting your partner's influence without sacrificing your own identity or freedom. Top Cat. What's good, sir? Let me know if you want to pop up here. So it's about mutual respect. gentle guidance and understanding, where both partners willingly accommodate each other's needs. Submission is not about fear or control, but about a willingness to prioritize the relationship and the well-being of your partner. Now, I know that is going to go against all types of logics, depending on whether or not you have this distorted red pill mentality or you're coming from the background of running with pickup artists or whatnot, okay? I don't affiliate myself with either or. I know people who are in those spaces. I will come to those spaces. I will have conversations with people in those spaces, but that does not mean that I subscribe to that ideology. As I've said before, I'm an equal opportunity foolery identifier. That means everybody's going to catch flack here and there if you're doing wrong. I'm for my fellas, but I'm not against the ladies. Reason being, I am a pro relationship type of dude. All right. I believe in relationships, but I don't believe in this foolery that goes about with people who seem to be in it for themselves or taking advantage of someone else to reap benefits again for themselves. It's not how I operate. It's not how I get down. And most of you should realize that from the content that I share here. Also, side note, Council of OGs, Top Cat, Chicago Real, and myself, we're going to do more content together where we will put down information that's going to hopefully fill in some of the gaps for those of you at a certain age group who are removed from certain experiences and exposures that have helped shape the situation of the world around you. That comes a lot also from us old ninjas, as you like to call us. Believe it or not, there's some things that we do know, whereas we're not trying to sun you. We're just trying to make sure that somebody is ready to take on the mantle when we move on, because we are now back at a point where we need folks to realize that our culture is under duress. There's direct threat. And we need folks to have an understanding of where we've done what's been done so you know what to do going forward. Oh, hey, Alicia. Where was power out for you? Now, I'm in Norfolk, so there's no power outage over here. So I guess there was some rain last night, but nothing that I can recall that really took any power out. Salute to you as well. So again, when looking at positive submission, take a look here. Where is it written here that is talking about you submitting to somebody else's authority, to whereas you are being forced to follow obligingly without anyone having a say so in the matter? You don't see that here. And again, take note. Get that right. Positive submission. Keyword, positive submission. All right, so just take a look at this list. And by the way, if you want to see the same list, just use the information that I've got above inside of the search field. And this should bring you to the same conclusion here. Oh, loud boom. Okay, I must have missed that, or pretty much slept through it. I'll put it this way. I'm on the Ocean View side of Norfolk. So my house right outside my window is probably a 5 to 7, if that much, walk straight down to the beach. So I've got the same beach as everyone else has down the street, about 20 something miles in Virginia Beach, where that's the showy part. It's the same water, right? Same water, but we don't have the amount of crowds that people do. But again, no, I didn't hear any loud boom where I am. All right, hey, get it in, TC, get it in. If I'm still flowing about by the time you finish chewing, hey, by all means, swing up. Otherwise, hey, we'll go ahead and clip it up and we'll look for the next opportunity. So moving right along here, look at all the advice and the information that goes into positive submission inside of a relationship. Let me scroll back up for a second and pick a couple things. Mutual respect and acceptance. Healthy relationships are built on respect for each other's individuality and perspectives. Now, I will say this about individuality. When you are part of a relationship, individuality no longer takes precedence per se, but it's still a part of what each person does and shares. Inside of a relationship, you have togetherness as well as times where there's individuality that's needed. But individuality is not to be emphasized. I've heard, and I'll say this, I quote, majority of the conversation that I've heard regarding individuality, it is women that I've heard make the statement, I'm concerned about losing my individuality if I commit to this relationship. Why are you going to be looking for a relationship if you don't want to look at the fact that it is no longer about individuality, it is about interdependence? And that goes for men as well. You can't be in a relationship talking about I'm an independent so-and-so, but why can't I have a relationship? Because by the very basis of independent, it means you don't need that other person. That is the whole point. Therefore, why be independent inside of a relationship? Yes, ma'am, it is. Although I do get people who park alongside my property so they can walk that 5 to 8 minutes down to the beach. But as long as there's a street where I can still drive across and park, which I do have space in my parking lot, I don't give it too much thought. But yeah, the weather is peaceful and there's a lot less traffic, but it's starting to build up now because they built up my area. What I'll probably do, folks, I'll take a couple of shots here and there and just start showing you what's around where I am in Norfolk. Again, I'm beachfront property. So again, just to finish that thought, as I said before, there's no point of looking for a relationship if individuality is what you're looking for, but you just want to have somebody available when I've got nothing else to do. I'm just going to pick a couple of randoms here now because there's too much to go into. Prioritizing the relationship. Submission can involve putting your partner's needs and happiness before your own, understanding that this strengthens the bond between you. So I think I just covered that where I talked about no one should be coming into a relationship focused on individuality when it should be about interdependence. There are going to be times where the knowledge of one partner is going to be best for that particular situation where the others does not, for lack of a better expression, does not fit or the logic does not work. This, this does not mean subservience. This simply means that at that particular moment, somebody had a better idea that worked for the betterment of the relationship. Yeah, there used to be a whole lot of drug dealers, pimps, and prostitutes in this area. Let me just simply say that gentrification has taken place, and there are now white folks who ride through on golf carts looking at the houses being built in the area. Now, how's that for a change? So growth is going to be based upon both parties understanding that my will not always can be done. If there's that basic understanding, there should not be any back and forth or any type of collisions here when you start having the conversation about submission. Or at this point in time, you should already be past the conversation of submission. One last thing here. Let's take a look at the view of negative submission. In the context of relationships, negative submission often refers to a pattern of behavior where individuals prioritize the needs and desires of their partner over their own, potentially leading to emotional neglect and a loss of personal agency. This can manifest as sacrificing one's own goals, opinions, or needs in order to maintain harmony or seek approval, often stemming from insecurity or a fear of rejection. While submission can be part of a healthy dynamic where individuals willingly defer to a partner's leadership in specific areas, negative submission is characterized by a lack of balance and can be detrimental to individual well-being and the overall relationship. This is the aspect of submission that is commonly taken when the word submission is thrown into the mix. All the negative of what submission brings is what gets focused on. Now, rather than saying that life is, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, I like to say life is 50-50. You can get your ass whooped or you can whoop some ass. But you know what? Them's good odds. Shout out to big brother Tony Lucas, who gave me that speech years ago. Yeah, 50-50. So you can't complain for a better number. Now, I know 50-50 triggers people in a different direction, but that's not the 50-50 that I'm speaking of right now. So let's keep that straight. Let's not conflate things, okay? So what's more we can talk about emotional, or should I say submission of the negative variety? Emotional neglect. When individuals consistently prioritize their partner's needs at the expense of their own, it can lead to feelings of being neglected, unsupported, or undervalued. This can create a disconnect within the relationship and hinder emotional intimacy. Now, think about this when we first started dealing in relationships and we started dating. Remember some of that old information. I'm not going to say knowledge or logic for right now, but let's just say some of the older information that was put out here is that when you are in a relationship, you always want to be next to that person so they understand that you are there for them. They want you, or they wanted you to look at it from a new person's perspective of entering into a relationship, that you are always going to be willing to support and be there for that person. No matter what happens, I got your back. But at the same time, what was not realized is in doing so, it makes you come off as smothering. Who remembers hearing as a guy, if this is how you rolled back then, hearing a girl saying, I can't catch my breath. You're so smothering. Every time I turn around, here you are. Now, doesn't that fly against the logic that our parents or grandparents or even some of the G's back in the time were giving? Or let me say the relationship G's, the folks who are saying, hey, here's how you build a strong relationship. But while building that relationship, if you followed too much of this advice or didn't understand when to pick and choose, you would literally smother the life out of that person's desire or want to be around you. So we got to take some things in consideration. I will also like to say that when a person gives more in a relationship than the other person does, you start forgetting talking about your friends. You start not going out. For example, back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, we couldn't text message, email wasn't a big thing. The only thing that you could do was sit by the phone and wait for the phone call. If you had given up anything of, well, I still have something I can do with my friends. I can go to the mall. I'll hang. No, I'm going to sit here and wait for this phone call. Yeah, you had plenty of people in America, worldwide, who would sit and wait for that phone call. You'd hate to get up and go to the bathroom just in case the phone rang. Let's say if you had to run an errand and you'd been sitting there for an hour or two and you figure, okay, well, I'll get up and run this quick errand. But what if so-and-so calls? Well, no, I'll run the errand later. And so you end up being on what I would call somebody else's emotional beeper. They pretty much put the beeper on your hip. So whenever they were looking for you or want to get in contact with you, you get that phone call at their convenience. So negative submission is the starting point for that. To whereas, yes, I want to be a part of your life. However, it's always on that other person's dime whenever it's convenient to them. So that is what you generally hear when you talk submission with the ladies. This right here, this list, these are the things that goes through their minds instead of considering the positive aspect. So keep that in mind, folks. Big difference. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask of that, please, by all means, throw it up here. All right, so that's pretty much my spiel right now when I'm looking at submission. Everybody has a bit of a cost that they will pay for this. So when we go back to the conversation of submission itself, let me throw this back out here one more time. Submission is generally what we are looking for as men from the ladies. But ladies, Understand this. Men submit first. Now, I realize a lot of you manly men and all this other type of shit sit here and say, I don't submit for nobody. I don't submit, I lead. The difference between men's submission and the lady submission, once more, we do it unknowingly when we first approach her. And again, when she hears submission, she fights against this consciously. But that's only because, again, the definition of submission is truly not understood because we've allowed charismatic idiots to define particular relationships for us. Always the loudest and most foolish, who is appealing in some sort of way, will get people following what they have to say. That doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. Let me see if I can get this right. Booker T. Washington once stated, a lie does not become the truth. Evil does not become good. Evil does not become good. Wrong does not become right just because the masses accept it. Keep that in mind. Just because you have a large following of people listening to some nonsense doesn't make it true. That could go the same for me or anybody else. Just keep that part in mind. Now, when I say that men submit first, we do, but it's never given any oxygen, all right? Let that breathe for a second. In relationships, men submit first. Let me go ahead and put my sound back on. Good time, folks. Fair use. Moonchild, King, DJ Jazzy Jeff Poser remix. Feel free. All right, now, since we're back from the music break, here we go. We put this up here from Hunting Wisdom. Masses minus the M. Top Cat, I agree with that. Yep. Oh, Miss Lipstick, how you doing? Yeah, so again, when it comes to the factor here, how many of you have ever given any consideration that men submit all the time, have been submitting, but there's never been any conversation around that? Drop a 1 in the chat if you now realize that men submit in relationships before women do. Drop a 2 if you don't, but obviously I'm going to explain this. All right, so again, when we talk about a man submitting first, what is the first thing that comes out of a woman's mouth if we make the decision that we want to pursue her? Oh, red lipstick again. Happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you. Oh, we got the first one in here. Hunting Wisdom. There's the 1. Appreciate that. Top Cat back to lipstick. All right, cheerio, everybody. Hey, boom, a fellow member of a council of OGs, Top Cat. Oh, Miss Red Lipstick, same thing as well. Hey, we got another 1 here. Now, for those of you who might be watching this in the replay, this is a topic that I don't hear spoken of on any other platform, because if you bring up the word submission, that's when it turns into a free-for-all for the definitions and reasons that I've already shown here before. A man shows submission simply by agreeing to the simple statement of, you can't chase any other woman if you want my time. Ladies, is that not what's expected? When we come to you and say, hey, I'm interested, how can I be down? Or in whatever vernacular that we might use, is that the response you give us if we expect to pursue you for your time? Hey, the answer is yes. I'll say that as a man who's been the guy who has been running the pursuit. We know right then and there that if you don't give us the thumbs up, well, hey, I'll go talk to somebody else. But if there's value that she sees in him that he's expressing in her through wanting to pursue her, we may have a good turnout here. All right, thank you for that, Honey Wisdom. All right, Red Lipstick, thank you as well. So in that instance, as soon as she tells you yes, fellas, and you are serious about your emotion, all right? You are serious about what you're there to do. That's when the dating phase starts. Now, just in case people have forgotten here, dating was something that came about maybe in the early 1900s, maybe going into the 40s or 50s or so. But prior to dating being introduced, it was all about courting, whereas it was known that the individual that was pursuing, or the guy who was pursuing the woman, if he is looking for her to be a part of his life permanently, he was courting her. Right now, we're talking dating. Dating is when you may go out with this girl, she may go out with this guy. You know, there's a roundabout pick and choose going on before it's decided that I want you to be my person. And when you make that decision to be somebody's person, you do it in a formal declaration, which is, hey, I'm looking to date you. What are we going to be about? She says, yes, you need to respect that, guys. She is putting her faith, well, let me take that back. That's not really a good word. She is looking at you to be an example of what you say. And as guys, I need to be an example of what I tell you. So we go through the whole first date, third date, fifth, around the spot here. Then, hey, I want you to be my girlfriend. She says yes. Then we continue down that road until we get to a point where he realizes when he wakes up one day, you know what? I can do this for more than just 6 months, 8 months, a year or so. I think I can commit to this for a lifetime. Now, right here is where it's going to come down to who you have chosen to pursue. Now, I'm going to take a side street here for a second. Complementary style. That's something that I don't hear people discuss too much on panels either. Simply stated, a complementary style is when both people complement each other. He likes to eat. She likes to cook. Does that sound like a complementary style? Does that sound like it can work? And I know this is real basic, but sometimes that's all it takes. He likes to eat. She likes to cook. We've got something that works together. She likes being in a position to provide information. He likes being informed. Does that not sound like a complementary style? Yes, that can work. But when you talk about he likes to be in charge and she likes to be in charge, do we have conflict brewing? For anyone who's still there, or if you're going to be watching this in the replay game, put a 1 in the chat if you recognize that if he wants to be the boss and she wants to be the boss, there's going to be conflict in relationship, meaning that we no longer have a complementary style. We have an adversarial relationship. Now, inside of those relationships, there are certain words that you should hear if it's going to go the distance. All right, hunting wisdom. Hey, there we go. We got a 1 here. Oh, by the way, folks, I apologize. I think there's probably an 8 to 10 second delay here, but nonetheless, as long as we're staying within 20 seconds or so, and it's not past that, we should be all right. Oh. So, keep in mind, an adversarial relationship is where you see the issue of, oh, well, he's cheating, or hey, she's taking phone calls, where people stop having the conversation with each other. Now, I put a short out not too long ago where I talked about how we should look at perspectives of relationship, simple things that needs to be done. Now, I'm not going to bring all that in here, but matter of fact, when the video process, or what I may do is inside the description of this video, I'll go ahead and drop a few links through a couple of videos or shorts that I put together explaining some of the things that us OGs keep in mindset when we talk about relationships. One of the things I spoke about here is that there are certain words and phrases that are spoken in relationships that are mutual. So think of this: consideration, concern, care, compromise. These are words that you will hear in a relationship that is moving towards something to be solidified. You're not going to hear that in pickup culture, because in pickup culture, the only thing being talked about is, yeah, get on my page. Yo, I lead. Yo, I'm not in your world, you're in my world. It's all about this nonsense of dominance. Sure enough, there needs to be one person who's going to set the pace and put the foot forward. That has to be there. But in doing so, that does not mean that it is a dominant, submissive relationship. As I said before, there is positive submission and there is negative submission. This conversation we're having right now is about the positive aspect. Keep that in mind, all right? So for that relationship to go any place, those words that I've mentioned, care, consideration, concern, compromise, let's throw communication in there as well. Let's even put in balance. All that goes to building that foundation that you work from. So when we talk submission now, when she hears submission, I'm talking about it in a general sense that if we're having a conversation, hey guys, so what is that you're looking for from a woman? I'm going to say these things. We've all heard them, but it doesn't subscribe to one ideology. So don't think that I'm up here talking, oh, you're talking that red pill, Kevin Sam. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that resonates across the board. It's not just in this one area where you hear this. So the question is, what is it that a man would be looking for from a woman? Friendly, fit, feminine, fertile, depending upon age, cooperative, agreeable, shows discretion, discernment, nurturing, and care. So if that's what's put out from what the guy is looking for from her, what is she looking for from him? In return, there should be focus, guidance, direction, along with security, stability, masculinity, fitness, care, and protection. Those things should be ready to go when the exchange is asked, what do you bring? Oh, one word I left out was discipline. But that is what we as men should be expected. Now, when you take one element from her, we'll say peace. All right. Peace is the one thing that we need from her side. He brings care and protection. When you put that care and protection together with her peace, you get mutuality. Now, when I say mutuality fares closer towards interdependence and not individuality. The mutuality means that there's two people who are now working towards the same goal. We are in lockstep. That is what we should be trying to achieve. So if we were to flip back and say, what is submission when a woman interprets that? A woman's submission, and this is just John Henry, all right? A woman's submission is more likely her trust. Okay, let's do that. Now, I've said this before in previous videos. Equate her submission to her trust, meaning that she should be able to see in the man that she wants to be her husband, the actions that he proclaims. Whatever he says he's about to do, what he's about to be about, he needs to be just that. And if she sees that in him, that is what gives her a level of confidence to say that, yes, I can be a part of what you've got going on. So her submission is her trust. When you earn her trust, you will earn her submission, her positive submission. Now, for those guys who thinks I'm over here simping out, no, miss me with that nonsense, because this is not a thing about being a simp. Remember, I talked about an equitable deal, mutuality. That is equitable. Interdependence. Again, that's another word that you don't hear a lot of on any of the panels when we start having these conversations. But far and low, what I think people seem to forget here is that it is always going to be a choice that people make, especially when we talk about submission. Come on, fatty. Now you know damn well that there's plenty of beach property over in Portugal. Now, if you're not by it, hey, what can I say? Rilla, I miss you up there, man. What's good? Hey, let me know if you want to come up here for a second. I told you, Council of OGs. If there's information that you guys want to add to this, let's do it. We got some of this time here before I go out and get in this sunlight, because Fatty told me, John, you need to go out and get yourself a suntan. Yeah, that's what Fatty sounds like to me. But again, it's always going to be a choice, and I never hear anyone taking accountability for the choices that they make, the choice of the person that you pursue, the choice of the person that you give yourself to. Think about this. And this is going to be quite commonplace, but I'll say it as many times as I need to. Yeah, Fatty, she's right, by the way. It's nice over here. A woman knows who she's looking for before she gets out of bed in the morning. If you get her time, it's because you're either the guy she's looking for or you are an acceptable alternative until what she wants comes along. Right? And even then, you can't really be for sure. But understand that that is a baseline that needs to be maintained. So what does it look like for men with that statement being made? As a man, I can't trick you for what's yours. You got to keep that in mind, because we go back to choice. As a man, again, I can't trick you for what's yours. All I can do is try to convince you why you should give it to me, because I'm a salesman, right? And by salesman, I mean that all I have at my disposal is persuasion. And even though I may have the best game, or what would my man say, Steve the Dean or whatever, some nonsense I heard about spitting sweet whiskey or whatever in their ear, I'm not one for spitting. Don't spit on me. Don't spit on anything. Don't spit. All right. But still, the whole aspect is that I can only try to convince you why you should. Whether or not you decide to is always going to be your choice. So ladies, keep that in mind. When you make that choice, it's because hopefully you've given some consideration and some thought, utilizing discretion and discernment. There's nothing that anyone can do legally, all right? So let's not bring this nonsense in here about force and grape and all that, but there's nothing that anyone can do unless you give them access to. And if you do so, the best thing that people look for is that your time is to be respected. Take the time you need to make sure that before you give him your submission, again, you show your trust that he shows you that he's good for it. And with guys, it's the exact same thing. Look below. Look below. Submission costs everyone involved, even if price isn't discussed up front. So we just can't let this sit in the background and act like the guy has no recourse in this because of the fact that, oh, well, no, submission is always on the woman. No, it is not. I think I have adequately proved that submission is what everybody engages in. Oh, I've got one of the founding members here coming to the stage. We've got Top Cat. What's going on, sir? We got 2 or 3 members of the Council of OGs here.
Hello, I got a little time because the 2 ladies was out. Now I got time to talk. With my granddaughter, that's hard to do because she wore me out.
Yeah, I saw earlier you said you got the grandbaby with you today.
Yeah, you know, you try to teach these kids while they're young, you know, about a lot of things, you know. And, in relationships, when they say 50-50, I never ever mentioned that to anybody. I just rolled with the punches. Whatever it is, and I never really focused on 50-50. It's how we complimented one another. You know, that's the way I've always taken relationships. That's the way I did it. But today it's different. Oh, 50-50. What do you mean by that? What's 50-50? I don't get it. She tells me now, when she's listening to all these panels and she look at me and is like, what's 50-50? We do for one another. That ain't a percentage. It's what we do for one another. She don't look a percentage. And maybe because she's a little older, she's 61, but some of these things she hears, she just shakes her head. She's like, how can they think like that? I don't know, because they're younger, I guess. So when you're younger, you don't have the experience like the older folks had to come up through the ranks, and you're learning as you go along. That's knowledge that you get. People need to start listening and learning. They need to do more listening than talking. And that's how I said when I was coming up that I always kept my mouth shut and listened to the OGs, and that's how I learned. They'll teach you these things. I'm teaching you how to stop from being hurt with these women. Stop saying this, don't say that. All these things are the learning process. So as you get older, you fall back on that. And some people just, they get out here and they get their feelings hurt. Like, what did I do? You gotta think. Even when you approach a woman, you gotta think. And I say this all the time: you never go after the best, the top. You gotta work your way up from the bottom to get there. You just can't go for the whole ball of wax at one time. You can't do that. So when you go through that, you learn, and that's how that's how you really. To me, it's how you got tough. If you got rejection, you moved on. You moved on. You moved on. It's gonna happen. But I never taken rejection as, I'm ready to jump off a bridge or something. That's just crazy. People, I don't get it today. I mean, people get their feelings hurt and they want to come on here, and I've never ever done that. I'm not gonna come on here and steal all my lifestyle or what I've been through because I look for somebody to feel sorry for me. I'm not. That's my responsibility. I did that myself. What am I going to be on her blaming another woman for my blight? That's just crazy. I don't have no time for that. People need to stop that stuff. Get off here and get you some damn help. That's the way I look at it. I'm just being blunt. Well, I'm just not that type of person to come on here and cry my heart out and say, this woman hurt me. And it's like, what am I doing? That makes me less of a man if I have to do that. That's the way I look at it. If I have to come on here and pour my heart out to people, that's making me look like I'm weak. That's the way I look at that. I don't need somebody else to solve my problems. I can solve my own damn problem.
So what I'm looking at, if I could for a second, Top Cat, now that's one of the things that we talked about, whereas we're looking at the transition from old to the new. Now, back in, I think, again, I'm like 15 behind you. I'm about 15 years behind you or so. So coming into that phase, this is where we talk about what we learn in our particular phases as we go forwards, because we have folks who do come on. I've seen a couple of panels, and I think you may have been around for when Joseph had his crash out.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, whoo. Now, he should have gotten assistance from someone way before that point, because what I hear you speaking of is not, let's say, where you get to that point of just, I don't know what to do now. I've had enough. The world. No.
Yeah.
You're speaking of from the point of I'm having my issues, then there's one or two things. Either I figure out how to correct that, or I continue blaming others. Now, when you get to that point to where you figure out how to correct that, what people will then do, if they realize that they are the constant denominator in how things go wrong, once they finally perceive this, or not perceive, but once they finally see this, people will then look to get that help. But if they do not get that help, they end up, as you're saying, always being up on the panel, complaining about, the world is against me. I can't find what I'm looking for. Not considering you may be the problem, why what you're looking for is always hidden. So right. I concur with what you're saying. Not everyone comes up on the panel and cries their soul out. But if you're going to come up and do that, you have to be willing to then look for the answer. Don't make it a pity tour when you go around here. That's why I always tell folks that it is best to recognize that when entering in a situation or relationship, you have to remember you are important also.
Right.
Put a 1 in the chat if everyone understands that inside a relationship, you are important too. It doesn't mean that you get any more or any less. You will get what you provide. As I've said before, value has no worth unless it's agreed upon, because we get what we qualify for in the end. So I've already had the conversation about an equitable relationship, and we're talking positive submission and negative submission. But still, it all comes back to the factor of, are you grounded in yourself first? And I think that's where Top Cat is also going with, although if you're not pulling it out, coming up and crying on the panel without having taken the time to recognize, why am I crying? What have I done? Or what am I not doing? If I'm doing the best that I can and doing the most that I can, am I not getting my fair or just desserts? That's when that individual needs to stop and think about who they're dealing with. And this goes back to what I said previously about a complementary style. Right? And that complementary, thank you for that wisdom. And the complementary style and a choice of who you are looking to pursue will alleviate a lot of those problems. They did it again, chat. Come on now, people. We've got to take this into consideration. So,
John, I grew up with 8 sisters. You ain't going to tell me a man with 8 sisters didn't know how to go about getting a relationship or talking to a woman, knowing how to dress, knowing how to do this, knowing how to talk. That's just crazy. And with sisters, they can look at you as a brother and say, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? What's going on? They would ask me. And as a sister, you're going to open up and tell them, well, this girl broke my, you need to get over that and move on. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying about you're getting that experience. They're letting you know, they're telling you. And that's what I had back then. So I was like, hey, all I had to do was ask. And that's the thing. So if I would get on there and pour my heart out, you're going to look at me and it's like, what the hell is the matter with this dude? I'm just saying, if you're around women, which I had 8 sisters, and they're old, there's some of them that's older than me. So I actually learned and watched and listened to the conversations, and of course they went through breakups and all that, but it wasn't to the point where they wanted to off themselves. It was never like that. So I don't get it where some of these women get out there talking about, nah, come on, something wrong with you. You just ain't strong enough. And everybody goes through hurt. That's just life. And I had to learn.
My bad. Pardon me for a second, TC. The question is, when you just talked about going through hurt, the question is, when people go through that hurt, do they have anyone that they can communicate with, that they can talk to it about? Here's one thing that I truly believe, and I had a partner of mine who educated me about maybe almost 30 years ago. He said, yo, John, check it out. You can't discuss matters of a heartbreak with someone who has never experienced it. All right, I'll say that one more time. Let me know if anyone agrees or disagrees with this, but you cannot have a conversation about heartache with someone who's never experienced one. Now, you'll ask yourself, who is a person who's never experienced heartache? Easy. Someone who is not given the time to invest, and I don't mean to make this sound financial here, but someone who is not given trust to someone else. That's how you get someone who has never experienced a heartache. Someone who's never sat in the house with the lights out. You know what I'm talking about, Top Cat? You turn the lights out. You may pour yourself maybe your drink of choice, me, a sweet tea. Others, it might be some Johnny Walker Red or Black, something like that. Put on whatever sob song that you can think of and just sit, just drink and just sit in the dark.
Yeah.
That is what will generally happen to someone who's going through that. Someone who has never experienced that is going to be off to the next person, because there's this thing of get them while you can. It's always that next notch in the belt. The whole reason that they keep moving and shifting is so they can avoid that feeling of loss, of regret, of loneliness. And again, that aspect does not get mined out a lot because we're taught, hey, I'm the leader. Yo, get on my page. Yo, it's my words. Get down, be in my world. And if it's not that, then it's going to be the other side of it. I think one of the shows that I was saving here for you, myself, and Real to get in on is going to be called Beauty Entices Manipulation. And when I say beauty entices manipulation, I'm talking about when you have someone who we call the beautiful people. And that is a result of the halo effect. And the halo effect states that, or is under the assertion that people who are attractive and are good looking are also good people, which is not the case. More often than not, these are the folks who are racking up on those notches if they're not using any type of word game, because of the fact that people seem to believe, if I do this for this attractive person, if I hang around this attractive person, I may get the shot at this attractive person. Whereas that person who is the object of that other individual's affection knows that as long as I don't tell you, no, you don't have a shot, hey, I can get some things done for me. I can get you to find shit, move shit, fix shit. And if it's a girl who's got a guy on the hook, he thinks that he's going to hit shit, which may not be the case. He just might be the guy who gets everything ready for the actual dude that she's looking for. Remember, I just said this? A woman knows who she's looking for before she gets out of bed in the morning. If you get her time, you're either the guy she's looking for or the acceptable alternative. But guys, on the opposite side of that, we need to make sure that we don't always believe that we are that only guy. All right? We may not be the only guy because we just might be the filler in the cake. Now, I've also seen the other side where guys have played the role of pretending to be interested in a girl. You know, she'll come over, you know, make you something to eat. I've done that. Okay, I said it. All right, I'm putting my skeletons out. Yes. Okay, I've done that. Come over to eat, maybe clean a couple of things up in the house, go out for dinner, you know, things like that. Sometimes, you know, when I was younger, they said, "Oh, I'll pay." Okay. That just meant to me that I got money for this other chick I'm going to see when we finish. That was the type of mess I used to pull when I was younger.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what happened. But as you mature, you start realizing that this stuff does not fly when you look at the concessions that you need to make as you get older, because you may not be as fly as you used to. You may not be able to get around as you used to. You may not have the same look as you used to because people mature. I'll land it there, Top Cat. You got anything else?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, growing up, us OGs, if we was hurt, music always soothed that hurt. Yeah, I'm telling you, dude, you sit there playing that music and you're listening like, what the hell's going on? You can understand when they start playing certain songs, they're going through something.
Message.
And then you know what they do? Then later on they'll open up to you little by little if they trusted you like that. But they're just not going to open up to anybody. See? Because then you open yourself up for scrutiny. So these OGs would pick certain people that they're around to open up to, that they knew they could understand where they were coming from. That's when I started to learn about, man, he playing this music, and then the next song, and the next song, I'm thinking, what the hell was all this sad music? You know, all these brothers are sitting around trying to put two and two together, and then they figured out the brother's going through something. And then they start talking, and I'm sitting there listening. Man, you're going to go through this one time, you know what you know what to do, you know. Just make sure you guard your heart if you're not being serious. You know what you're getting yourself into. Don't do this, this, and this. Don't be leading off like you're all that and then you ain't that. Because sooner or later you're going to prove that. All these things I learned growing up. So all the women I got, I didn't have to flash no money or dress a certain way. I just had to have the gift of gab. That works all the time.
Love and happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what people today don't learn, that we had different ways of pouring out our emotions. And it didn't have to be going around telling the world. But the people that were close to you that you trust, that's who you leaned on. You just didn't lean on everybody. You just can't go up to everybody and say, look, this girl hurt my... No, they don't want to hear that crap. And they'll look at you and think you're crazy. So you're right. It has to be certain people that you really, truly trust to get that vibe back from them. Because if they haven't been through it and they haven't experienced it, they don't know where you're coming from. That's all I'm saying about that.
100%. If you've never experienced it, if you've never been through it, how are you in a position that you can talk about it? And in most cases, there are people who want to avoid having that feeling of being empty, of being let down, of rejection, because it's easier to, what's the expression? Well, the best way to get over one is to what? Go find another one.
That's right.
And that only makes the problem worse, because now you are passing the hurt. You're recycling it. You're putting it onto somebody who was not there for that. But now that they've been hit with it, there'll be the dark room, there'll be the cutoffs, there'll be the weight loss, there'll be For some folks, the drinking, or others, the eating. And
Yep.
then whenever they come out of that funk, everybody else has to pay the price.
Yeah, but they don't understand that when the relationship, and I'm gonna say this, as soon as you get done with a relationship and you're looking to be in a serious relationship, close that door, because once that door is still open, you have a tendency to go back out there. And that's exactly right. And people don't understand that. I'm telling you, I've been through that. I had to get through all that stuff, get all that running out of me before me and Mrs. OG really got serious. But I can tell you one thing about her. I can sit down at that table and we can sit back across one another. She'll say, "What's the matter with you?" She sees me. She knows me and she understands something's going on. What's the matter? She's been around me long enough to know my everything. And she could tell without even asking questions, "What's the matter with you?" She could tell right off the bat. And then she'll ask me, what's going on? What do you mean? Don't you feel good? She senses that. I don't have to tell her, but she knows it. And that's what I mean. When a woman is locked into you, she gonna know something is up. And a lot of women, you know what they do? They look at you, they ain't worried about you, they're going about their business. What if you're hurting over something? They ain't worried about that. They're worried about self, themselves. They're not worried about you, but self. And that's the type of women that people got to stay away from. And they're not hard to, they're not hard to, these women aren't not hard to read. They're very easy to read. There's a certain body language and the way they talk. You'll know if they envy you or not. But I learned all that through the years. And then when you try to tell these young dudes out of today, they look at you like you're crazy. And they wonder why they wonder why they're broke.
We talked about that. We talked about that part again, whereas now we're talking about affairs of the heart. If you have not been around someone who's willing to have that conversation, or you've been there for someone who has had it, you're not going to think of that matter. But we also have to keep in mind, it's called soft, man, you simping. If you're actually giving some consideration to somebody else. The main essence, or I shouldn't say essence, but the main message I remember that you, myself, and Rilla talked about briefly the other day, it comes around to what's been missing.
Yep.
Now, remember how you and I just the other day, I know Rilla couldn't make it, we talked about how music is the soundtrack to our lives.
Yeah.
And at the same time, music is also the cadence to history. So if you take that in mind, if we go back to, like we talked about, the 60s and 70s, where music had a message. I believe you said it was the Intruders who said life is like a baseball game, 3 strikes you're out, or something like that. You had people having that conversation about what had them going wrong. Love and Happiness, again, Al Green. What's another big one? I'll always love my mama. You know, guys letting know that my mother is my first concern, who I love the most, who's given me my perspective, you know, my favorite girl. All right. And then, of course, you got the Temptations, My Girl.
Yeah.
All right. Who was a Beauty's Only? It was Temptations, also Beauty's Only Skin Deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So forgive me if I get off on this. Like I said, Top Cat, I may miss one or two here. This is right in the zone where you can speak of. But again, we're talking about that message that music is bringing. I can even think about, even in the mid 80s, Shaka Khan had a cut that I still listen to right now, Love You All My Lifetime.
Yes.
Right. Or even we're talking, let's say some of the UK soul, Loose Ends, Slow Down. All right. Means, hey, we're getting too fast here. Let's just back it up a little bit. Let's just slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that type of music having the message. And then all of a sudden, during the same time, you got to have a J-O-B if you want to be with, whoop, there you go. And then the messaging started changing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where it started changing. But prior to that, when you speak about the message and you look at music and you think about the situation when you're sitting down by yourself trying to figure out, now, how did this happen again?
Mm-hmm.
Did you play a part in this? Did you not hear something? Or did you hear the wrong thing and you took it in? This goes back to another part I was going to talk about, submission, where people are always listening to the most charismatic idiot, the next person on stage. And the question I sometimes ask is, how is this person in a position to give advice when you either have nothing to show for it, or there's always some type of adversarial aspect of what you're speaking of? But then again, no one is really going to take that into consideration if that narrative matches how their intrinsic values are put together. An aggressive dude is going to look for aggressive commentary. To you, Top Cat, what you got?
Remember that song, My Girl, right? After that song, My Girl, the Temptations put out I Wish It Would Rain. Now, if they listen to the words of that song, sunshine, blue skies, please go away. My girl has found another and gone away. With her, with my future, my life is still in vain, because day after day, I'm still wrapped up in my pain. I know to you, it might sound strange, but I wish it would rain. This dude's crying, wish it would rain because he's crying, but he don't want to go outside because he's still in his pain. This is where people don't get it. They got to listen and then listen to the words of what he's saying, and they'll understand. But see, nobody understands all that. But they did. They're getting us ready for what's going to happen. So if you found my girl, just get ready for this. It's going to happen. And that's what they're telling you. And that's what we pretty much was into back in those days. The music was telling us a message that helped us get through a lot of stuff. And it did. It did. It helped us get through a lot. You know, that was deep.
I'm missing those days where we talked about you had crooners. You know, guys get down and sing that song, and this is what's on my mind. But hey, the ladies also had their fair share of putting the message back and forth also.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Put a 1 if anyone's picking up what we're putting down right about now. Put a 2 if you still don't understand and need more explained. But I think that's pretty much it right there, what Top Cat is talking about. We had a message that came with the music before that gave us ideas of how to deal with it, of how to consider maybe a shortcoming that we had. There was one, Lenny Henry, I love you. Remember that? Woo! Now that was a man who was in his emotions about what he had lost.
Yeah.
That right there. And today, that would be called simping.
Yes.
Yeah, silly. That would be called simping. Hey, let me do this. Alicia, I see that you still hang on in here, which I appreciate that. Is there anything that you would like to add to the conversation, or are you comfortable there in the chat? So let us know here if there's anything that you want to add to this, because again, I'm speaking of the male perspective right now because we're males. I mean, what else am I going to speak of, right? I have an idea of the female perspective because I've either been around enough females, which I have been, or I've been told. But right now in this moment in time, all we can do is express what comes to our mind. But if you're not able to do so, hey, that's all right. Just throwing that out there because, again, this is the type of conversations that Top Cat, myself, and Rilla, when he's free, this is what we're going to try and look at, from whether it's going to be an emotional type of conversation, whether it's interpersonal, from a relationship perspective, or from an overall societal perspective, like the very first one we did today about the N-word. But we'll come back to that one. There's so much to speak of on that one. But for right now, the emotional aspect, as Top Cat and I are alluding to right now, if you have never experienced a heartache, you will never understand what it is to talk about it. Therefore, submission, if you are a woman who's experienced it, is going to be hard to provide, even under the best circumstances. As a man, if you are not one who's been successful or who always ends up in a situation where you catch the short end of the stick, submission will not be something you'll be looking for. You will have a score to settle, most likely, because I've been that young cat also, where I'm just looking for another notch in my belt. Okay, old girl did me like this. I may not be able to catch up, but you know what? This one over here showed me some attention. Let me go ahead and see how you like it.
You know what gets me though? And we won't talk about this music. If a black man didn't love a black woman, why would they record that music about loving that girl and that girl ends up leaving them? Why would they record all this stuff? You see what I'm saying? I mean, listen, they're putting out this music for a reason. We love these black women. And that's what it was all about back in them days. They weren't worried about nothing but them pretty black women. These brothers put out song after song after song after song singing about their situation with a woman, crying out because the woman left them. Man, please. They talking about brothers today don't love black women and they don't love us. Nah. Y'all got it wrong. They need to go in reverse and listen to that stuff. And maybe they have a different mindset about what we were dealing with when we were coming up. Don't tell me that these brothers didn't love these women. They wouldn't be recording these songs if they did. That's the way I look at it. If they didn't, they wouldn't be recording these songs about loving a woman. They wouldn't have done it.
Choice always be that factor when it comes to who you decide that you want to love, who you decide that you want to hate, but there's always the foundation. How did you get there? And it's always going to be choice. And
that's exactly right.
And I don't hear enough, again, I do not hear enough people talking about the choice they made. Because in the end, you tricked me. No, I did not trick you. I can't trick you for what's yours. Now, can a man be manipulative? Yes, as much as a woman can be manipulative. But as opposed to pointing the fingers, the aspect is to understand that when you make the choice, you own the consequences. What is so difficult about accepting that? You make the choice, you own the consequences. Someone had asked the question on one of my panels once. I don't know if it was when Nino and I were discussing something, but I made something also known that I don't hear too much of either, which is a woman will not be cold, broken, lonely unless she chooses to be. However, a woman can be cold, broke, and lonely based on how she chooses to behave. And that's not hanging a boat anchor around a woman's neck. The thing here is that from the dawn of history, she has always been the desired object. She has been the one that men have fought wars for, have gone to bat for, supposedly slayed dragons and so forth. But the thing is that in making that decision, that choice to pursue her, have you considered what her intentions were back? And she knows that she is the favorite item. And I don't use that loosely, by the way, ladies, but I'm simply saying that she, being woman, knew her place in the game. She was on that pedestal because we as men throughout history were to protect her chastity, her innocence, her love, her affection. All that was to be put in place. And the woman who respected that is that prize that men used to talk about. She was the epitome of what they talked about. That is the woman that you want on your team, your ride or die. But unfortunately, there were some of her ilk who realized I can misuse this to my advantage. I can find that guy who may want to kill dragons, move mountains, and so forth, but I don't feel the need to give him that time. So that's where things start to fall out of favor. So if everyone ever starts to wonder who made this situation, how did it get like this? Dude, it was us. Because remember, if men are the leaders, we rule the world and all this other stuff that you hear, then of course, who would be in a position to make such a decree? Men. So therefore, we also have to take the onus, all right, of the consequences that come from that. But ultimately, in the end, as I said before, men and women, if we're looking at each other, what is it that we have to offer? I'm going to say this one last time. We'll go ahead and wrap up and get out of here, Top Cat. So as a woman looking at a man, what is she looking for from him? She's looking for focus, guidance, direction, discipline, security, stability, masculinity, fitness, care, and protection, to include knowledge. A man looking back at a woman, we're looking for feminine, fit, friendly, fertile, depending upon age, cooperation, agreement, discretion, discernment, nurturing, as well as peace. And as I said before, we take her care, we take her peace, we take his care and protection, we mold that together, we get mutuality. And that is what we should be shooting for. But with that mutuality means that we now have, as I mentioned before, that positive submission. Just so we land the plane here. It's the positive submission that we're looking for. not to immediately gravitate to the negative aspect. I ain't cooking for you. I ain't cleaning for you. You don't own me. I'm not your slave. No, there's no slavery involved here if we meet on that mutual ground. Her peace, his care and protection brings mutuality. Hey, a fair exchange is not a robbery. Am I right?
All right.
Hey, so what's your last thoughts here, TC?
I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. I've been with this woman 22 years. I'm glad I don't have to go through all that stuff no more. I'm over that. But no, I mean, hey, I don't, if you work together, you can get more done. You know what they said? 2 heads is better than one. 2 heads is always better than one. People got to look at that. There's a lot of give and take. I don't really look at that. It's just a give and take, and that's just about life. That's hey, move on. But at the end of the day, all I say is this. I ain't got to tell her what to cook. She cooks. I ain't got to tell her about cleaning. She cleans. I don't have to open my mouth and say nothing. It's like it's in her DNA to do that. Like I don't have to tell her to do these things. And it's just crazy how people you got to tell her. No, you don't. No, you don't have to tell her. No, if it's in her DNA, she automatically does that. We don't program these women to do. That's just crazy.
She's dialed in. Based on being around you, she's dialed in.
Yeah, she is. She's always been that way. And like she told me, when I met you, I didn't care how much money you made. I didn't care about what you had or what you drove. I didn't care about none of that. It's all coming from the heart and your character and how you carried yourself. And that's what it's all about.
Good looking out. As always, TC, I appreciate you for stopping by. And we're going to do this again, folks.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Last but not least, folks, keep in mind, find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right. Thanks again for stopping in, Top Cat. Honey Wisdom. Thank you for providing some say-so here. We'll look for you in the future. Fat E, Chicago Gorilla, Red Lipstick. Thank you all for showing up. All right. John Henry and Top Cat. We out of here. Peace.